Time for a Chevrolet Sportsnet Central update. The Celtics kicking off their training camp today at the Auerbach Center. Joe Mazzulla at the helm for his first practice as interim head coach. Despite the late coaching change, the Celtics are still the favorites to win the NBA title, and they brought the energy in their first practice of the year.
I saw an eager to get out on the basketball court. I saw a competitive nature, and I saw an attention to detail about where we are and where we're trying to go.
It was one of those things where everybody was attentive and everybody was ready. Like, you could tell that at the end of the day, everybody's just ready to get back out there and play our first game. Like, we could probably go out there right now and compete at a high level.
I think everybody was so locked in. We were all so ready to go that once we got out on the court, it was just nice to get back on the court and review our defense and talk about offense and, doing what we do.
Yeah, a little bit of basketball is where we start the daily thread. Guys looking relaxed, like they're actually like the pressure of yesterday. Giles, who's here with me, Chris Forsberg as well, is off. The Celtics, remarkably, Chris, I actually thought when I checked the odds that when everything went down with Ime Udoka, that their championship odds, I don't necessarily say plummet, but they would certainly fall. They didn't, Forsberg. So what did you see today from a team that has championship aspirations coming off, let's be honest, probably kind of an emotionally draining day yesterday?
Yeah, I think I saw a team relieved to get back and put the focus on X's and O's and basketball and not everything else going on around them. I think Jalen Brown had the line on Monday, something like, basketball is a great equalizer. Despite all the distractions and everything else that's going on, when you get this team and put them back on the court, it's a supremely talented group that was a few minutes away from, being up 3-1 in the NBA Finals and feels like that they added with the addition of Malcolm Brogdon. And so I think they're relieved to try to get back out there. Now there's going to be growing pains and they're still got to figure some stuff out along the way. But I think they understood. And even from that first glimpse of getting back together today, they saw the talent is there and they kind of were able, some guy said, it's almost like we picked up where we left off. That's an incredibly encouraging sign for a team that needs to put the focus on basketball.
And you brought up, the title aspirations, Trenni, and the fact that they're still favorites. That doesn't necessarily surprise me just because at the end of the day, towards the second half of the season, you would think at this point, Forsberg brought it up, there might be some growing pains, and I actually think there might be some as well in the first few months, but you get Robert Williams back in the middle of the season. At that point, Joe Mazzulla will, found his voice as the Celtics head coach, and you would think that everyone would have figured out their role on the team and the rotations and everything else, and hopefully maybe even they add a piece at that point because they do need some depth. So as far as the title odds and everything else not changing, that doesn't surprise me too much, but I do think that, out of the gate, maybe they win a few games, but there will be a lull somewhere in there, and it's just trying to figure out how to respond from that.
Well, the good thing is they went through a lull last year, right? And they figured out how to put things together. So it's not, I don't think for them, if they go through a stretch where they're not playing the type of basketball that they want to play or they're not winning games at the clip that they want to, it's not for them going to be the end of the world. They know they can figure things out. Well, Joe Mazzulla has been a head coach in the G League and in college, but even he admitted today that he's kind of still figuring some things out at the pro level.
Yeah, I tried to end today's just being on the court with the guys because that's something that I miss and something that I wanted to be able to do. So there are moments where I'm walking around like, what am I supposed to be doing right now? But, for the most part, I love being out there with the guys, and they're great guys, and that's where I find my joy, and that's where I want them to get there.
You know what, Giles? I like how candid he is. And I know he's kind of joking, right, a little bit, where he's like, sometimes I didn't really know what I was doing, but I kind of don't think he was. Like, I think there were probably moments today where it was like, okay, wait, like, maybe I did this in college, or maybe we did this, when I was playing in college, but I can't do that now. And there's going to be trial and error with him.
Well, yeah, and it seems like he understands, right? He understands it. There's a little bit of humility to it. And also, I think he was very impressive in his press conferences so far. And I'm sure Forsberg that he was just the same today meeting with you guys after practice. It seems like he knows who he is. He understands that, and his voice reflects that.
Yeah, Forsberg, how did he look? Like, what type of practice did he run on his first day? Could you tell he was a first-time head coach?
We see 20 seconds of shooting at the end, so it's hard to get a gauge on exactly how he is out there. I will say you try to gauge based on how he is in those press conferences afterward. And just like Giles said, I thought he was super loose. I think you could be very tight coming into your first day, like overthinking, what are you going to say? How are you going to run your first practice? We heard him say at the end that he just tried to keep it very structured to the way they did it last year, the same time frame, the same sort of shuttle between drills, trying to keep that familiarity for his players. And my favorite thing was he got asked at one point, someone said, what were you thinking on your drive in today? And he said, I think I drive a minivan. And like he's still driving the same car that he's had for years now. His wife was actually on Twitter talking about it as well. And so he's not going to get fired from himself. He didn't get an upgrade on his parking spot yet. So this new head coaching job won't go to his head. But I do like that there's a little bit of levity in there. And yet his whole goal is just making his team better and keeping the structure that they're familiar with.
When's the last time there was a minivan parked? One, in an NBA parking lot, but more importantly, in the head coach's spot of an NBA parking lot. Forsberg, you actually tweeted out this video today of Jayson Tatum and Jalen Brown shooting around on the main practice court. That was an hour after practice officially ended. So what did you see from the two stars today? And what have you just sort of seen and gathered from them all off season about where their heads are at coming off last year?
Yeah, I'd go back to Monday's media day, and I got a chance to sit down with them. Eventually, you know, we'll have that whole interview out there. But one of the things I really loved is that there's this point where Jalen's like, do you want to win? And he kind of turns to Tatum, and Tatum's like, yeah. And that's all they care about right now. They've done all the stuff that young players need to do to sort of check the boxes, like get to All-Stars, Tatum with the All-NBA, get some of these accolades that make you feel like you've made it a little bit. But now the focus is like, okay, not everyone can do that. Not everyone can go win a title. And being so tantalizingly close, I think they understand there's just another level they have to go to, another degree they need to get better, especially on the biggest stage. But it's encouraging to see them just sort of take over those practice courts. Jalen was working on ball handling. That will make everyone who was worried about those turnovers feel better. Tatum's down the other end, just doing getting all his moves in and doing his normal shooting drills. But it's a good way to set the tone too, because all the other young guys are either on that second court or have already gone to the back, and they're out there, and there's your superstars. I think it's nice to see the leaders of your team out there setting the tone on day one.
Yeah, and I also, that's going to be important through the season. I want to say this about Jalen Brown, too. He just sounded very driven, very motivated, which is kind of what you would expect. You know, when asked about the trade rumors and everything else, I loved his answer to that, talking about coming in, feeling like he's in the best shape he's ever been. I think he's going to have a big year, but when it comes to those two guys as well, you know, it took Ime Udoka kind of in the middle of last season, really, it felt like anyways, to get this team to buy in defensively, to kind of buy in cohesively. I think they should be at the point in their career where it doesn't have to come down to a head coach kind of letting them know that they should kind of identify that and take over a little more leadership role here in this year.
And I kind of wonder if that, too, is why the expectations haven't changed. Like, while the head coach, I don't agree that a coach isn't important in sports. I think a head coach is important in sports. But when you have two stars like Jalen Brown and Jayson Tatum, they should be able to take control of a team and manage what they are supposed to do. If they're doing their job, then the team should be able to win. All right, Forsberg, we're going to need you to just cover your eyes for a second while we take a look at Robert Williams. He's at practice, but he just wasn't practicing. He's, of course, recovering from surgery on his left knee. Grant Williams, Al Horford talked today about the importance of the rest of the front court to step up in his absence.
Today they came in with a great mentality. They came in ready to battle with one another and battle to get better for this team. And that's something you love to see because they're going to be asked to step up, myself, Al, everybody on the front court. So we just got to be prepared for that, especially for the first matchup, whether that's the Charlotte Hornets in preseason or whether that's the Raptors or whether that's the Philadelphia in our first game.
We have a lot to prove. You know, we do, especially our front court. So those guys know it, and I feel like this was a good first day. You know, obviously we got to continue to build on it, but those guys are hungry and they're very motivated.
Al Horford in better shape than you've seen him. We just were both watching him and we said, Al Horford looks fitter. Like he's ready to handle the physical challenge of taking over for Robert Williams.
Fresh, too.
He's been drinking all that chocolate milk or whatever he subscribes to. I don't know, like you get to a certain point in your career, you just take the TB12 method and you start eating your avocado ice cream and you're ready to go. Like, no, Al got a taste of the finals for the first time last year. He's super motivated. The question is who's going to help him, right? And you start looking around and the big surprise of the day, or I don't know if it should even be a surprise. We tried to tell you on this program for a couple of weeks now that Luke Kornet was going to have a big role, and that sort of scares Celtics fans because he's been a part-time player for the 2 seasons he's been here. When practice open, you can see him here in the green jersey with the starting group. It's an indication that at least in the infancy of camp, they're giving that a whirl, trying to see how he matches up. I think they like that because then you can still have continuity with Brogdon and Grant Williams coming off the bench, the roles that they'll probably play later in the season. But Luke's got to show that he can hang there, and there's not going to be a lot of stress because of the people that will be around him. And like he hit a mid-court shot there. You can see him celebrating. Both him and Al hit these half-court shots at the end of practice. Everybody was feeling good. That's when the positive vibes really started to flow out there.
Forsberg, I love you, but I'm going to rake you over the coals if Luke Kornet's not like the 6th man of the year. Like the way everyone's talking, everyone is talking about Luke Kornet is like the second coming of like.
Well, is it Luke Kornet or Sam Hauser? Because they're going to be in competition with each other.
How did Brogdon look at practice today? I had to bust your chops there a little bit.
So again, all we saw was like him doing some weaving drills with the second unit, but I think it's a good sign that on day one that Malcolm Brogdon was working with that second group. He had said coming in here that he was going to embrace that group of him, Derek White, Grant Williams, Capangeli. You'll see Pritchard get in there a little bit. There's going to be an opportunity for all of them to thrive. And all that Brogdon cares about, at least what he says in the ramp up here, is finding out how to mesh, how to make players better. I'm eager to see how that new bench looks because of how poorly that bench played in the finals for the Celtics.
Luke Kornet for MVP. What are his odds, John?
Be great. Well,
y'all sleeping on the green Kornet.
Those are not on the board.
Kornet. All right, Forsberg, thank you very much. The Patriots visit the Packers. Oh, yeah, the Packers are going to Green Bay.
Yeah, talk about Sunday. Green, yeah.
Mm-hmm. We'll get you ready for starting at 11:30 with Michael Holley, Tommy Kern, Matt Castle, Phil Perry, and Burt Breer. Pre-game live is presented by the Oakers Company, proud sponsor of the New England Patriots.